Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we are going to look at this white noise fixed blade knife from the company Hydra Knives. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Hydra Knives who did provide this product for review. Now in the past we took a look at this Hydra Knives Buzzard and this Hydra Knives Open Field. Both of these knives performing extremely well, so I suggest if you're interested in seeing these knives, take a look back at my prior videos. Now this Open Field was very impressive. I greatly enjoyed it. This does have some slight, I would say, design changes from this, which is the original prototype, to what it is now for the production model. But in that video I was very successful making a bow drill kit, so a full friction fire kit, and unfortunately that video doesn't have a ton of views. So if you're interested in checking out this Open Field, I do greatly suggest going back and taking a look at one of my prior videos. But that's not what today is about. Today is about the white noise. And here you can see this knife at this point has a good considerable amount of wear and use on it. I have put this knife through the paces. It was literally brand new the first time I used it, and at this point it has some good quality hard use field time on it. Now I do have a whole bunch of thoughts on this. I can tell you I greatly like this knife, and I think Hydra Knives is definitely moving in the right direction. So at this point I have a whole bunch to show you and a whole bunch to talk about. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now here, the Hydra Knives white noise. Usually for me, a good hard use test is going to really show me what a knife is capable of. You know, if you've been watching my channel, you probably realize that I greatly rely on my knives for woodscraft and firecraft purposes. So here, using the white noise to baton down through some good hard stubborn oak, I have absolutely no problem blowing through the wood. Now it's not the easiest because it's not the longest knife, but at the same time it can definitely do the work. So pounding down through the wood, splitting smaller and smaller, the Hydra Knives white noise doing a great job to process this wood. Now it is a little bit thicker than 3/16 of an inch, but not quite a 1/4 of an inch thick stock, but this is more than capable of doing some good hard work. This knife does have a hollow grind, but it is doing a great job getting down through the wood, and I do trust it. After good hard field use and no edge damage, I definitely feel as though this Hydra Knives white noise is going to be a great option for a camp knife. But what about the slicing tasks? Well, I already said it has a hollow grind. It should do fairly well. And getting on the wood here to produce some feathers, well, it's definitely doing a nice job. The handle ergonomics are absolutely phenomenal on this knife. Good and comfortable, and using a hammer grip here, you'll see doing a wonderful job carving. So whether I'm taking some larger chunks of wood or even getting into some of those finer little feathers, the Hydra Knives white noise doing a great job. The edge is nice and refined, and this D2 tool steel doing a wonderful job. D2 can sometimes be a little bit toothy, but that works well for me and especially for the woodscraft tasks. So as I carve here, fine little feathers, and as I mentioned, even some larger chunks, the white noise feels great in my hand and is doing a wonderful job. And finally, after some considerable work, here I have myself some nice little tinder to start my fire. But what about the fat wood? For me, I always like to process a little bit of fat wood to start my fire. It does a couple of things. First is fat wood can be just a little bit stubborn sometimes. It's hard, and that deep resin color can sometimes be a little bit difficult for knives, so having a good refined edge should do a fairly nice job. And here the white noise doing a wonderful job getting down and getting me some nice chunks of this fat wood. This is going to be absolutely perfect to start my fire. But what about the spine of the knife? The spine on the white noise is not the most square, but it is definitely capable of doing the scraping tasks. Between the fact that it is not extremely squared off and has a coating, it does take a little bit of effort, but at the same time doing a nice job here to use the spine, scraping on the wood, and getting some fuzz. A nice buildup of fluff and having a good accumulation here. This is more than enough to get a nice spark off a ferro rod. And so leveraging my ferro rod, angling it down into my pile, and a nice easy little motion here, no problem at all, that spark took off nice and quick. And with that, no problem at all, getting my stove fired up, and we'll let this get up to temperature. And so while this stove gets up to temperature, I thought I'd try some utility tasks. Now right away trying to cut this rope, I did struggle just a little bit. I think the edge geometry is just a little bit broad. Not a big deal, but it is maybe just a little bit broad. At around 20 degrees, that's not the most slicey, but it is striking the middle ground between a broad edge capable of splitting and one that's going to be reasonably durable and something that's a little bit thinner and capable of doing the slicing tasks. But I did get through the rope overall. But what about some hose? Well, this can be a quite stubborn test for any knife. But here you'll see I did struggle just a little bit with the white noise. However, I was capable of doing the work. It took a little bit of effort, but I did make it through the hose. I wanted to try some simple slicing tasks on the rope again using some push cuts. Now this can be a little bit difficult, and especially the fact that the white noise has a recurve. It doesn't have a lot in the way of belly, so it really limits your overall cutting edge while you're working down onto a surface. However, I was definitely capable of doing this work. Again, it took a little bit of effort, but after some practice and really finding my way through this, I did realize that if I used a little bit of a sawing motion, it made a big difference, and I was able to cut through the rope fairly effectively. So that is one thing that's a little bit difficult because of the recurve. However, you can definitely do this type of work. Alright, so now back in the studio taking a look at these Hydra knives in detail. So the first thing is, as I mentioned, and of course we're here to specifically talk about the white noise, but I cannot go too much further without just saying Hydra Knives took a real big gamble. When I first met these guys, and I go back to working with them at the very beginning with their Buzzard, when they had a Kickstarter campaign, that's what really got them started. But from there, they literally developed their entire line of knives without selling anything other than their original Buzzards. So all of the Instagram work and their marketing, an entire website, all the way through their entire production of their entire lineup was all done without them selling their knives. And at this point, they've finally come to market, and you know what? They're making a bit of a splash. They have an edgy look. They have a nice, I would say, like sort of target demographic. And with that, they have some beautiful blades. So here, just 3 of their models. Again, the White Noise, the Open Field, and the Buzzard. So at this point, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into this white noise. We will look at the knife in detail, as well as some of the other things that I'm thinking about Hydra Knives. And so the first thing, and I've said it about 1,000 times on my channel, no, just kidding, not 1,000, but definitely a bunch of times at this point, is the packaging. I mean, look at this packaging. First off, it's beautiful. They did a gorgeous job with the overall packaging, the layout. Their branding is nicely done. So everything they're doing, they are definitely paying attention to the details. But the one thing I can say, and we'll get into it, is I think this is just a little bit over the top because I know that you're ultimately going to be paying for this. And the first thing I'm going to note is, well, look at the size of the knife compared to the package and even the sheath. It's not like it takes up that much more space. So in reality, I guess my advice to Hydra Knives is, moving forward, just be very, very cognizant of the size of the packaging. And again, we'll look at it in a little more detail, but to me, the box could definitely be cut down in size, and that's going to do a few things. One, the manufacturing cost overall to make the packaging, and then two, shipping cost. Every single knife is going to have a shipping cost, and when you cut down on the size of the package, that could have long-term implications. So making it smaller, cutting down on the overall bulk and size, reducing the weight and also the volume should have savings in shipping in the long run. So just my advice and my sort of, I would say, and I'm not going to say expertise by any means, for all I know, maybe they would pay the same exact money, but I would have to think that it would come into play. So just cutting down on the overall package size a little bit, I think might be beneficial. But looking at the details here, the first thing, it just has this little slip collar here, so that sort of cardboard coming off. And then looking here, so Hydra Tactical Knives. And that's the thing, they have taken sort of, when I said, you know, they've reached a nice demographic, to me they are targeting that sort of tactical look. So a little less woodscrafty, a little less bushcraft, but it's not to say these knives can't do that work. In fact, they do that work wonderfully. And this Hydra Knives white noise definitely performing for those tasks. But again, as we open the box, that's a little magnetic closure. So again, paying attention to the details, but I am afraid that you kind of pay for this in the end product. It's nicely done, it's beautiful, but packaging, of course, secondary to the quality of the actual product inside. So with that said, I think they are paying attention to the details, and the presentation when you first open this up, it's amazing. So when you get this, the knife is beautifully presented in the box, and as you can see, this wonderful presentation, it is absolutely spectacular. The actual quality of the packaging, the quality of the presentation, all the way to the finest of details. And when you look real deep, you can even see that they have laser etched their logo in the foam. I mean, that is just amazing levels of detail. To a legal notice and your maintenance and all of their information, this is just absolutely wonderful. And to be honest with you, probably one of the best I've seen. So, I mean, again, packaging only goes so far. Presentation, to me, really only goes so far. But when you first open this, you go, wow, that is absolutely impressive. So right off the get-go, the wow factor with Hydra Knives is definitely up there. So again, when you get the blade and it's in perfect condition and you see the name and you see just all that detail, very, very cool. But then the next thing is when you remove the inner foam and sort of getting into the inside here, well, the sheath ends up underneath the foam and there is all this extra sort of goodies in here. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure if I got some of these things as a review model or if this is standard and comes with it. I will try to get the details and annotate below, but what I do have in here, and very, very cool, I mean, a couple of different morale patches. This one here is spectacular, and they have put a lot of time into their branding and just trying to get it right. And this here, their logo, very cool. A second morale patch here with the name, some cord. Now, I don't know if this cordage is truly like 550 cord, but definitely like a paracord style, and nice to have some material for a lanyard or even a small survival kit. A neck gaiter or bandana, some stickers, an advertisement for their Buzzard, and here, a nice little touch. But they use this is their actual cut test proof. So cutting test proof. This was used to actually test the edge of this exact knife. So again, subtle details, but these guys are paying attention to the details. And just really neat. I mean, the idea that they're going to this length to give you the look, to give you the presentation, to give you some of these additional little extras, I think it's just really cool. And it's refreshing to see a brand going to this level of effort. And even if some of these things in here are just for me as a reviewer and a tester, well, I mean, they're paying attention to the people. They're paying attention to the customer. They're developing an incredibly nice presentation and package. And I can tell you that absolutely shows when you feel the knife in your hands. And so that's the first thing you're going to notice when you get one of these Hydra Knives models in your hands. Just the overall quality and craftsmanship and the feel. This knife, I can tell you, it is stout. I mean, when I got this in my hands, I was like, whoa, like this means business. And this white noise here, I would say is very reminiscent of a Becker BK2 or an ESEE. It's in that same sort of genre. And in fact, I would love to put this white noise up against those two knives as a direct comparison. It has the overall stout build quality, just that tank in your hands feel, that feeling that no matter what you do to the knife, you're not going to damage it, you're not going to hurt it, it's going to break you before you break it. And this white noise is definitely that kind of a beast. So the first thing, this comes just wonderfully sculpted. This gray G10 handle scale feels wonderful in the hands, and I think it's a real neat colorway. You don't see a lot of knives in this particular color, that sort of light gray coating with the medium gray handle scale. It almost looks like you took a picture of it and just like reduced the saturation to none, and you ended up with almost a black and white picture, but that's the way the knife looks. Now at this point, you can see after considerable use, a lot of the coating is starting to wear away. Not a big deal, and in fact, for me, I love my knives to have good hard use patina, and that's what you're getting here. And you can see the wear points on the blade. Now when we look at the blade shape, overall, this does have a drop point design with an unsharpened swedge at the top. You end up with a saber grind almost at the 50% mark, which is going to make this wonderful for your splitting tasks, kind of like that batoning task that you see. It does work very well. Now the reason why you don't end up with some more material missing on the bottom, I believe, and when you look up close and you take a look straight down the blade, this to me is hollow ground. Now I think a hollow grind is an interesting choice on the bottom rather than a flat grind. To me, it's a little bit, I don't know, I'm not going to say suspect, so don't take it the wrong way. I'm just going to say it was a gamble, because a hollow grind is not necessarily going to have the same strength as a flat grind. You're going to have a little less material, but what it is going to do, it's going to give it a little more slicing capability. You're going to have a little less meat behind the secondary bevel, and that's going to give you the opportunity for a little more slicing capability. So this knife striking the balance between your splitting tasks, but also your slicing tasks. So it's going to be decent at food prep. It's also going to be decent at feather sticks. Now something I've been playing with is this angle guide. So as we install the knife into this angle guide, well, what I'm seeing here on the secondary bevel is roughly, I would say, between 20 and 22 degrees. So with a 20 to 22 degree secondary bevel, this isn't going to be your like best slicer, but it's also not going to be in a chopper class. It's going to be right in the middle, kind of where you want a wilderness survival blade to be. So it's going to have a good slicing capability, yet a reasonably durable edge. And this is a V grind, so with that, I would say that the white noise is going to be a solid average performer in most cases for general wilderness and woodscraft and firecraft tasks. Now in terms of the blade stock thickness, I get roughly 5.25 millimeters, which is roughly 0.2 inches. So a fifth of an inch. In other words, it's a little bit thicker, I think, than a 3/16 of an inch stock. So that, again, is going to be very durable. Now, if you get to a 1/4 inch, obviously that's going to be 0.25 inches, more like your BK2. So this is maybe a little bit thinner than the BK2, but at the same time, with that hollow grind, again, just going to be a nice slicey knife. So overall, the ergonomics of the handle, the wonderful contouring, beautiful palm swell, and look at the just nice curves, smoothed out, feeling really nice. You end up with these scallops. Interesting choice for the bolts. Now, that's one thing that to me could be hit or miss. These are like safety bolts. So even though these are a star bit, you end up with like the safety bits in there. A lot of people don't have the means to really deal with that. To me, that's a little bit of a miss. I personally don't take my scales off too often, but when I need to, I need to. And this is going to be a pain in the neck for me. So although I understand it and I get it, I would be really curious to see what's behind these scales. I want to know if they're skeletonizing. It doesn't necessarily feel too much like it, but there has to be because of how neutrally balanced this knife is. And as I grab it by the true indexing point, look how aggressively I can shake this around and that knife just sits there. The balance on this is phenomenal. So they did a real good job getting that balance point right where you want it. It's good, it's wieldy, it feels nimble for a slightly beefier knife, but it just feels solid. This thing just has that feel of ultra strong, durable, and premium. The jimping on top, not overly aggressive, feels good on my thumb. I'm glad it's there. It's perfect. This definitely does not want a finger choil, in my opinion. The size of that cutting edge, real nice. The overall comfort, really great. And the fact that it has enough of a guard for stabbing tasks, you're not going to worry about slipping. You're going to have nice lockup, and it just feels good. Now, the handle is a little bit long for me to get my thumb over the top, but the nice thing is it's reasonably rounded, so it's not going to kill your thumb, and it stops right there. Now, I don't know what this little hook is for. That's kind of funny. It's just a weird little design element that I don't completely understand. Maybe it's just to add some look. I'm not 100% sure, as I mentioned, but overall, pretty cool. A little bit of jimping on the back side there. So again, is that going to aid in purchase on the knife? Well, I'm realistically probably not going to put my hand back there, but it's just, again, a little bit of look. Everybody's going to use the knife in a slightly different fashion. I would never grab it this way because it gets close to the blade. So for me, it's this way. And then again, I'm not really going to be touching anything there. My hand's really not going to be gripping on that jimping. So to me, that's just a little bit of an aesthetic, but definitely cool. So overall, very nicely done. Now, I like the fact that Hydra Knives chose to use cryogenically treated D2. Now, in theory, this is sort of similar to the Nylox that we saw on the open field. So definitely a good choice. K110 is also another steel in the D2 family. And when you look at the Hydra Knives website, they do report that this is Böhler K110. So Böhler being a German steel. So here we have Spanish design and construction with materials from around the world, and here the Böhler K110 steel. So a premium steel. I'm a big fan of Böhler steel, and I greatly like D2. So to me, the steel choice on this is absolutely perfect. And so taking a look here, you'll see that the overall length of the knife rolling in just over the 10-inch mark. So the overall length of this knife here being 10.36 inches. Now the blade here being a total thickness, as they're reporting, of 0.21. So as I had thought, right around that 5.2 millimeters. And the overall length here at 5.12 inches. So a nice overall blade length and just wonderfully done. Now overall, the sheath is very nice. It's a quality taco-styled Kydex sheath. You'll see a number of connection points, the ability to put some lashing and webbing, and here you have this tensioner. Now I did find, for me, I do have to run this at full tension, installing the knife reasonably firm and a good click. But the problem for me is when I have the tensioner kind of backed off, it's just a little bit loose. And I would not trust this in inverted carry. Even with this fully locked, I still technically don't trust it. So dialing that in and tightening that down, at this point, you get that nice solid click. So I do trust it as a belt knife. I just wouldn't trust this inverted. I think overall, the fact that this has this webbing works well. It's going to be not too loud. You may end up with a little bit of slap, but it's going to give you some flex and give. It's going to be comfortable on your hip, and it's going to be a nice serviceable sheath. You do have the ability to carry it ambidextrous, which is awesome. So they are thinking of the details here. I like it. I like the fact that it's ambidextrous, so righty or lefty, that's going to work out very well. It's a reasonably slim profile, being a taco style versus the pancake. and you have plenty of lashing points. So generally well done. I think they could get a little bit better on the retention, but I'm not going to complain. It's a good quality serviceable sheath. And I also like the fact that they get into the details, doing a little bit of laser etching with their logo and giving it just that interesting look. So there's sort of like honeycomb pattern in there, the Hydra Knives logo, and a good overall just nice and sleek looking package. So overall, this Hydra Knives White Noise, definitely a beast and a knife I've come to greatly enjoy. So alright guys, there you have it, a look at this White Noise from Hydra Knives. Again, I'd like to say thank you very much to the people at Hydra Knives for this opportunity. I do greatly appreciate it, and I like the direction Hydra Knives is going in. I think the fact that they took a gamble and they really stuck their neck out to get these knives into people's hands, they've done a wonderful job, and the gamble is paying off. Overall, beautiful build quality. The overall fit and finish is great, but the heat treat, the quality of the blade, the choice of steel, I'm a big fan. The handle materials, everything about this is really working. I do like the overall ergonomics. I think this knife is great. You know, no knife's going to be perfect. Everything's going to be sort of a work in progress, but for Hydra Knives to come out early on just with really cool, interesting, and just awesome designs, I think these guys are really doing a great job. So Hydra Knives, keep up the good work. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. Hope you like what you saw. Hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.